two-legged friends, sometimes two-winged friends. Really don't mind. We just love talking animals on BBC Radio Kent. We're a radio station of animal lovers, I think it's safe to say, which matches perfectly with the county, because certainly where I'm based on the coast, we are a town of animal lovers, no doubt about it. You go and walk down the seafront at night, as I did a lot during lockdown. Still love to do it. Everyone's got a dog. I've got a cat at home. We just love our animals here in Herne Bay. And I know they do in Bourton-Monchelsea, not too far away as well. But that's where you'll find Buttercups Goat Sanctuary. It's where we're heading right now. And Cathy is going to have a word with us. Good afternoon to you, Cathy.
Good afternoon.
Cathy, thank you so much for speaking to me today, because I say every now and again we like to have a little natter with you guys just to find out how the goats are doing. How's their past few weeks been?
It's been, the goats are fine. There's been a fair amount of wet weather, as we all know. But they've had their 3 meals a day while they've been in their houses during that time. So they're still well looked after, but they're not that fond of the rain.
I know how they feel. Is that it then? They're little houses. Is that how you describe it? Is it like a little?
Yeah, I mean they have each one has its own stable. Sometimes they live in 2s, 3s, and sometimes 4s. But they have their own bedrooms, and most of the time they know which one is theirs. And then every evening we put them to bed in their own stable with either their friend or on their own. So yeah, they've got their own little compartment in our houses that we've got.
That's such a lovely image. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cathy. That has put a smile on my face.
Sometimes, though, some of them are quite naughty. We know the ones that don't like going to bed. So
is it always the same ones?
Pardon? Yes, pretty much.
Is it always the same ones? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how do you tempt them? How do you lure them back to their own bedrooms if they're just saying, no, it's not bedtime for me?
Well, sometimes you just give up and go and put another one to bed, because most of the time when it gets to be dark, they will go. They do realise when it's dark, but they're really clever because bedtime gets later and later during the spring as the days get longer, and then it gets earlier and earlier as the days start to shorten, and they seem to know when it's beginning to get dark. But very occasionally we have to tempt them with their favourite food if it is getting late and it's been a particularly nice day and there's particularly sweet hay in the hay racks left over. They might need a little bit more temptation than normal. But most of them, if there's 1 or 2 left in the yard, with 1 or 2 exceptions, they probably realise that they're the only one, and then they go, all right, well, I'm bored with this now. I'm going to go back into my bed and have my nice warm bed to rest in.
It sounds just like having I imagine just like having a house full of teenagers, which I haven't had that experience, but from what my friends tell me.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I liken the goat yard to a school playground. So you've got some really naughty ones that are some quite honestly naughty ones, quite bullyish. You know, we have to really watch some of them because they try and dominate some of the lesser confident ones. So you know, it is a bit like a play acting out in the yard constantly, because they're constantly assessing one another to see who's stronger, and the hierarchies are jumping, moving around the whole time. It's not just the same goats. I mean, we've got 2 leaders at the moment who've been pretty static, but there are a couple vying for the top position at the moment. So it's constantly assessing each other for how strong they are. Yeah.
And how do you keep that under control, Cathy? I mean, it must be quite a difficult job for you to do, as mum and dad all rolled into one.
Yeah.
How do you keep control if you see a goat sort of building up to bullying?
Yeah, I mean, animals are animals, and there'll always be a leader. And as long as the ones that are less dominant kind of play the game, there's generally not too much of a problem. And also, because they're a prey species. They in the wild before they were domesticated, they're very. They won't try and knock. They won't hurt each other too much. They're just assessing how strong the other one is. And if they go too far, obviously their instinct would be, well, I'm going to injure myself, which is going to cause me a problem because I'm going to then be more vulnerable to a predator. So it all goes back to their wild behaviour. They also have very adapted foreheads. You'll see them knocking foreheads together. And a lot of the visitors get quite upset about that because they think if it was us knocking our foreheads together, it would hurt. But they've got special adaptations in their foreheads to stop the shock absorbers. So it doesn't hurt them as much as we think it would hurt us if we did it.
It sounds like such a wonderful job, and I always say this when I get to speak to you guys at Buttercups. I think it's a lovely place you've got there.
We're very blessed to be working here, that's for sure.
Have you completely recovered from, obviously lockdown affected you guys quite a lot because you couldn't have guests through the door for a long period of time. Are you now back on your feet again, or are you still feeling that effect of the pandemic?
We're always struggling. Animal sanctuaries always struggle with any kind of national emergency. So we always need visitors. We always need funds. Luckily, we have an open field, so visitors can social distance in the field. So we haven't got a booking system, but people can, obviously, we tell people to social distance in the field. And then our tea room at the moment is one bubble per sale, if you like. And people wear masks, and we've got a screen up in the tea room for staff, and obviously we wear masks in there as well. So yes, we have been affected. Thank goodness we survived, but we were worried, like every other animal charity that there is. So we're still here, but we still need support because obviously we have lost a lot of revenue over the last 18 months as well. So we need your support, everybody.
They are scary times at the moment. I don't think there's anyone in the county who doesn't feel it in a different way.
Exactly.
But obviously with the goats, you need still to be spending the same amount of money every month to keep them warm and keep them fed. So that was obviously very worrying for you.
It really was, yeah.
And this may sound like a silly question, but please do bear with me, and I think you'll know what I mean.
Okay.
How did the goats deal with, all of a sudden, all of you, their family there at Buttercups, suddenly wearing masks? Did they give you a funny look when you first appeared with them?
No, I can't say they did, to be honest. I mean, I think they recognise us more by our sort of gait, how we walk around. They know our voices as well. So, I certainly didn't notice any change in their behaviour. I was furloughed for the first lockdown, so I'm probably not the best person to ask that question. But having come back and worn masks around the goats, I haven't really noticed their behaviour changing. I think they recognise us more by, as I say, how we move, our height, and our voices. That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that.
Well, I know sometimes, when you approach a dog, and some, I don't have a dog myself, have a cat, but when you walk towards sometimes dogs on the seafront, and I forget I've got a mask on, and I'll sort of, go to say hello or bend down, and, some of them don't, there's no difference at all, but others sort of give you a bit of a double take.
Exactly.
And you have to pull the mask down a bit and go, I'm friendly.
Yeah. I think they can see your eyes, and eyes are always quite important when dealing with animals. But no, I haven't noticed any difference with wearing masks at all. The others might say contrary, but I haven't really noticed.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to put you on the spot now, Cathy. I'm going to ask you a really difficult question.
Oh, don't, please.
Who's your favourite goat there at Buttercups?
Oh, I told you that before. It's Alaska. The white. She's a white. She's half Nubian, I think. She's one of the shyest goats that we've got. But she's very, very beautiful. She's got a few brown splodges on her, but she's almost pure white. And you'll find her quite often kind of on her own or just in a quiet place. She's not a dominant goat by any means. But I have a special bond with her because when I first started here, she was very poorly. And I looked after her for the first 2 or 3 weeks when she was so poorly. So that kind of time spent with her cemented our special friendship.
You bonded.
Yeah.
I only ask because it's a lovely story, and there'll be other people who haven't heard you before on BBC Radio.
Okay, that's fine.
I just wanted you to remember, because it's such. I remember you saying last time about having that very special bond. Does everybody there have a favourite goat that they're particularly attached to?
Definitely, yes. It's funny. It's just like friendship. You choose certain characteristics and certain things, and you're drawn towards certain personalities. I also like some of the bossy goats as well. It's not just the gentle ones, but there's a particular time I spent with her. So other people have got their own. And we also have the guardianship scheme here, whereby you can pay to have your own goat, in effect. So we'll look after the goat, and a lot of the guardian goats will have very special bonds with their guardians as well. That's time spent with them, and also quite often food as well. I won't deny it. They love people that feed them.
Isn't that the same with it? I mean, it's the same with Baxter Cat. If I wasn't here to feed him, he really wouldn't care less about me. He's lived with me for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I took him in as a stray. He was a stray. He was abandoned. He was taken to the vets.
Yeah.
And they called me and said, "Do you want to meet him?" And I said, "Oh, yes, please."
Yeah.
But, if it weren't for the food element, I have no doubt I would completely fall off his radar totally. I don't kid myself. How can people become goat guardians if they like the sound of that?
At the moment, we're fairly full because we've only got a small selection of goats. But everything is on the website. The guardianship scheme is on the website. But because we've only got a small number, the idea with the goats coming to us is that we foster them out so that they get more one-to-one attention. So it's quite rare for a goat to go on the guardianship list because it has to be a goat that is in fairly good health but also can't be fostered out, because the ideal for all of our goats is to foster them if possible. So for the moment, the guardianship scheme is fairly full, but you can adopt goats, and all the details are on our website. So the adoption is slightly different. You pay slightly less, but you adopt there's about a choice about 8 goats, and you can receive a newsletter from your goat, come and see your goat, but that has to be during opening hours, whereas the guardians can come kind of first thing in the morning. So it's slightly more access. And also the guardians have 1 goat, whereas the fosterers, you might have the adopters, you might have 10 other people that have adopted your goat, or 20 other people. So that's it in a nutshell. Hope that
You're sharing a bit. You're sharing. It does, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that. What is the website if people have been listening to you and thinking I'd be interested in looking at that?
It's www.buttercups.org.uk.
www.buttercups.org.uk.
That's the one.
Perfect. Thank you so much for chatting to us today,
My
Cathy.
pleasure.
I know there are goats there waiting. Alaska's waiting for you to come back, and she wants to know what you're doing.
Well, it's a bit miserable today, so she's probably sitting in her house, having filled her rumen with hay this morning. So yes, I will not. She's already had half a banana from me this morning. So
it sounds like you have a wonderful life.
I have to say, don't feed goats too many bananas. That's a big point.
or humans, for that matter, because it's a bit sweet and it should be just a treat. I think that's very nice. Good
very
of you.
big treat for her.
I will take that advice as well. Thank you, Cathy, and I really appreciate it. It's always a delight, and it always makes me smile speaking to any of you guys at Buttercups Goat Sanctuary there. They're in Bolton-on-Chelsea. If you can help them in any way, you've just heard the email address, the website address, I beg your pardon. So do click yourself through to there and see if you can help any of their goats. If there's ever an opportunity, I'm sure they would really, really appreciate it, because those funds have been seriously hit by the pandemic of the last 12 months. I'm Erica North. This is BBC Radio Kent. It's 10 to 3. How do you fancy some Cher? If I could turn back time, here it is for you on BBC Radio Kent.